In the quiet suburb of Silver Creek, the police knew what missing looked like. It looked like a crisis they could see. It did not look like Leo Vance, a 17-year-old boy whose frantic certainty that his sister, Clara, had been taken was immediately dismissed as teenage melodrama. For the next 12 days, Leo's warnings were ignored. The detectives laughed him out of the precinct, convinced they knew better. They didn't, and that costly assumption gave the real predator all the time he needed to vanish. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Leo walked into the Silver Creek Police Precinct with a terrible weight on his shoulders and a frantic story to tell. He was met not with concern, but with cynicism. His panic was seen as typical teenage dramatics. His insistence on immediate action was dismissed as the naivete of youth. Detective Robert Hayes, a 20-year veteran hardened by a steady stream of runaways and parental disputes, took one look at the boy's fidgeting energy and immediately categorized the case. Code 10-53, domestic squabble. Hayes didn't see a terrified brother fighting for his sister's life. He saw a nuisance demanding attention. He saw a case that would solve itself when the girl showed up hungry at a friend's house in a day or two. The police laughed at Leo, subtly and politely, and they sent him away. But weeks later, when the truth began to claw its way out of the shadows, when the initial damning error of that morning became sickeningly clear, Detective Hayes was forced to look Leo Vance in the eye. He didn't just owe the boy an explanation. He owed him the kind of apology that only silence and a relentless, desperate search could ever begin to repay. Because Leo had been right all along. And because of their arrogance, the time they had lost might cost a 15-year-old girl her life. Leo Vance and his younger sister, Clara, weren't especially close in the way movie siblings are. Their connection was quieter, rooted in shared survival. Their parents traveled constantly for work, leaving Leo, the elder by 2 years, as the reluctant administrator of their suburban independence. He managed the grocery runs, the bills, and the relentless cycle of keeping their large, empty house functional. Clara, 15, was the artist. She lived inside her sketchbook, dressed in oversized thrift store sweaters, and had a small, fiercely loyal group of friends who were equally interested in obscure indie music and avoiding the main currents of high school popularity. On Monday night, the atmosphere in the house was normal. Leo remembered the exact sequence. 6 p.m., he heated a frozen pizza. 7:30 p.m., they argued briefly because Clara had left her watercolor supplies all over the dining table. 9 p.m., Leo retreated to his room to play video games. 11:30 p.m., he knocked on Clara's door and told her to turn her music down. She responded with a muffled, annoyed grunt. That was the last time he heard her voice. He woke up Tuesday morning to an unsettling silence. Clara wasn't in the kitchen. Her favorite oversized mug, the one decorated with a galaxy print, was still on the drying rack. Her shoes were by the door, but when he opened her bedroom door, the bed was neatly made, a habit totally unlike her. Her laptop was open, displaying a login screen. In the absence of her large, heavily stickered black sketchbook, the one she carried everywhere, was a glaring hole in the room. Leo didn't panic immediately. He called her best friend, Mia. Mia hadn't heard from her. He called 2 other numbers. Nothing. At 8:30 a.m., he called his mother in Tokyo. The frantic, broken connection made the explanation impossible. By 9:30 a.m., when he pulled up to the Silver Creek precinct, the cold knot in his stomach had turned into a searing, unbearable certainty. The station lobby smelled of stale coffee and industrial cleaning solution. Leo approached the desk sergeant, a large, impassive woman who looked like she'd seen 1,000 mornings just like this one. "My sister, Clara Vance, she's missing," Leo managed, his voice cracking on the last word. The sergeant lifted a brow, glancing at the clock. "How long?" "Since last night. Maybe 11:30. She's not answering her phone. She wouldn't just leave. She left her sketchbook." The sergeant sighed, already reaching for a form instead of the phone. "Son, we generally need 24 hours to pass before we can file a formal missing persons report on an individual over the age of majority, and even longer for a minor unless there are immediate signs of endangerment." "Is there any history of her running away?" "No, never. She's 15. She hates the outdoors. She wouldn't leave her sketchbook, Leo insisted, slamming his palm on the counter. The sergeant winced at the noise. That's when Detective Robert Hayes emerged from a hallway, catching the tail end of the commotion. Hayes was a man whose cynicism had long ago replaced his curiosity. He wore his age, late 50s, like heavy armor, and his eyes had the detached, judging look of someone who had seen every possible variation of human foolishness. "What's the excitement, Sergeant?" Hayes asked, his voice a low, gravelly monotone. The sergeant gestured toward Leo with a tired hand. "Wife's gone, kid. 15-year-old sister. Last seen last night." Hayes crossed his arms, leaning against the door frame. He took in Leo, the dark circles, the frantic energy, the slightly oversized hoodie. He saw a stereotype. "Look, kid," Hayes started, pushing off the frame and walking slowly toward Leo, his steps heavy with implied authority. "I get it. Your sister's mad about something. Maybe she's at a boy's house. Maybe she finally got sick of your parents being gone and decided to blow off some steam. She's 15. This is textbook. Did you fight last night?" "We had a small argument about her art supplies," Leo admitted, his shoulders slumping under the weight of the detective's dismissal. "But she never goes anywhere without her phone or her sketchbook. Her phone is in her room. That means she didn't plan this." Hayes chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Or it means she wanted you to think she didn't plan it. Smart kid. Look, you go home. We'll start a preliminary inquiry, standard protocol. If we don't hear anything by tomorrow night, we'll talk again. But for now, call her friends, call your cousins. Don't waste my time on a runaway. Who'll be back begging for pizza by tomorrow afternoon. Now, fill out the form." The sergeant handed Leo the paperwork. It felt heavy and useless. He left the precinct not just worried, but profoundly, sickeningly alone. The police hadn't just rejected his report. They had invalidated his terror. Leo went home and felt the cavernous silence of the house amplify his fear. He refused to wait. Hayes had given him a day. Leo gave himself until dinner. He started his own investigation. He logged into Clara's social media accounts, using passwords he'd guessed years ago. Nothing suspicious. She had exchanged a few cryptic DMs with Mia about a secret project, but nothing indicating flight. He printed out the one decent photo of Clara he had, a slightly blurry selfie where she was making a duck face, wearing her distinctive hand-knitted purple scarf. He drove his beat-up Toyota to the places Clara frequented, the public library, the local coffee shop with the terrible acoustic music, the park bench where she and Mia sometimes met. He talked to her friends, but they all confirmed the same thing. She was working on a large art piece and had been focused. No secret boyfriend. No sudden plans. By Wednesday morning, 24 hours had passed, and the clock that Leo felt ticking wasn't police protocol. It was the biological clock of survival. He started printing posters. He had to use the color printer at the local UPS store, draining his savings because he wanted the purple scarf to pop. He spent the entire day taping them to lampposts, traffic light boxes, and community bulletin boards across Silver Creek. At 4 p.m., Detective Hayes called. It was a purely procedural call, ticking a box to show he hadn't ignored the case entirely. "Mr. Vance, this is Detective Hayes. I'm filing the official report now. I need to ask you some follow-up questions for the file. Anything change?" "Yes," Leo said, his voice flat with exhaustion and resentment. "She's still gone. I checked everything. She didn't take her wallet. She didn't take her glasses. Detective, she needs glasses to see anything more than 20 feet away. Does that sound like a runaway?" Hayes sighed audibly into the phone. "Teenagers don't always think rationally, Leo. Maybe she got a ride. Let's talk about habits. Any drug use? Vaping? Secret boyfriend we should know about?" Hayes was fishing for the easy answer, the one that would allow him to downgrade the threat level. "No, she draws. That's her only vice. But I did find something else." Leo's tone sharpened. "Her journal. She usually keeps it under her mattress, but it wasn't there. I think she had it with her, but she didn't take her bag or anything else. Why would she take only the journal?" Hayes scribbled a note, dismissing it internally as irrelevant. "Could be in a friend's car. It's not evidence of a crime, son. Now, I need to know about your location Monday night. You said you were in your room, playing games. Did you leave the house? No, I was home from 6:30 until now. But I did see something. Around 1 a.m., I was still up. I saw a dark blue sedan, old model, idling down the street. It drove past our house really slowly, then doubled back and parked near the corner for about 10 minutes. I figured it was just some neighbor coming home late. And you thought to mention this now? Hayes pressed, a hint of accusation in his voice. I didn't think it was important until I realized she was gone. Leo shot back. The car was unusual. Silver Creek is usually dead quiet at 1 a.m. Hayes brushed it off. Lots of night shift workers in this area. Leo, I'll note the description, but without a plate or even a definite time window. It's thin. We'll notify surrounding districts. Keep calling her friends. We'll be in touch. Leo hung up, fury making his hands tremble. They weren't investigating. They were processing paperwork and waiting for the runaway to return. He knew in his bones that Clara was in danger, and the only person taking action was himself. The next few days blurred into an agonizing ritual. Leo would spend the mornings revisiting the sites, the afternoons checking the local park trails, and the evenings peeling off the inevitable missing posters that had been ripped down by rain or apathy. The town was beginning to stir, but not with helpfulness, with judgment. He heard whispers at the grocery store. Parents are never home, poor supervision, and must be drugs, these kids today. Leo felt the community, like the police, was blaming him for not being a better guardian, rather than helping him find his sister. He focused on the only thing he had, the house. He meticulously searched Clara's room again, looking for anything that contradicted the runaway theory. Under her desk, shoved into a dusty corner, he found a receipt. It was for a small, independent hardware store 30 miles away in the next county, dated a week before she vanished. He called Hayes back immediately. Detective, I found a receipt. Hardware store, 30 miles away. Why would Clara go there? Hayes sounded exhausted and annoyed. Leo, I told you we have protocols. I have active cases. This is not high priority right now. A receipt could be anything. Did she buy something for our class? Did she go with a friend? Stop searching for evidence to make this a crime, and start searching for reasons she left. She's a teenager, not a federal agent. Leo realized he was wasting his energy arguing with a wall of cynicism. He didn't call the police again for 4 days. Instead, he drove the 30 miles to the hardware store, showed the clerk Clara's photo, and learned she had purchased 2 small brass hinges and a special wood glue. He learned that this was not the purchase of a runaway, but of someone building or repairing something small and secretive. 9 days had passed since Clara vanished. The official Silver Creek Police Missing Persons case file remained parked on Hayes' desk, categorized as voluntary disappearance, low risk. Hayes had managed to convince his superior that the lack of violence, missing items, or ransom notes made it a textbook teenage departure. Leo, however, had become relentless. He had switched tactics, using his technical skill. He stopped arguing with Hayes and started feeding him data. Detective Hayes, Leo said calmly in his latest voicemail, his voice stripped of emotion and fatigue. I used the open-source Wi-Fi map and cross-referenced it with the local cell tower data. My sister's phone stayed connected to our router until exactly 9:12 p.m. Monday night, the time she was seen walking to the mailbox. Then it dropped. Your record shows Ethan Rowe's phone pinged the North Tower at 9:27 p.m., but between 9:12 and 9:27, the phone did not move. It should have pinged the tower closer to the house if she was walking to a friend's house nearby. The drops suggest she left the house, but the phone was powered off or taken out of range of all towers almost immediately after she checked the mail. That's not a runaway, detective. That's an intercept. Hayes listened to the message twice. He hated the kid's condescending, analytical tone, but the technical point was valid. He passed the data to Detective Maria Santos, the precinct's lead tech analyst, purely to shut Leo up. Santos came back an hour later, looking less than pleased. Hayes, the kid's right. It's a clean kill switch. That's unusual for a teenage dropout. They usually leave it on for texts, then turn it off when the battery dies. This was immediate, and I found something else. That older blue sedan the kid mentioned. I checked municipal camera data from a neighboring town, 3 miles away. at 1:15 a.m. Tuesday. A car matching that description, dark blue, late 80s model, passed through an intersection. The plate is blurry, but I can make out the last 3 digits, 47Y. Hayes felt a tremor of professional dread. The kid hadn't been making it up. He still wasn't convinced it was an abduction, but the smooth, clean disappearance now looked less like a teenage tantrum and more like a planned extraction. He authorized a search warrant for the exterior of the Vance property, mostly to appease the accumulating paper trail. On Friday, 12 days after Clara vanished, the search team found a first true piece of physical evidence, confirming Leo's desperate fear. Underneath a thick, prickly rosebush in the neighbor's yard, about 10 feet from where the dark sedan had supposedly parked, a forensic tech discovered something small, metallic, and brightly colored. It was Clara's unique, hand-knitted purple scarf. It was tangled around the stem of a rosebush, torn in one small spot, and covered in a faint residue that forensics quickly identified as low-grade engine oil. Hayes stood on the curb, staring at the purple wool, the color tragically vibrant against the gray concrete. He ran a hand over his face. The scarf was evidence. The oil residue directly contradicted the image of a runaway teen. And the location, shoved under a bush near where a mysterious car had waited, suggested a desperate, brief struggle. Hayes felt a nauseating wave of realization. He had wasted 12 days because he was too lazy, too cynical, and too quick to judge a teenager in a hoodie. He had laughed at the one person who knew the victim best. The case was immediately upgraded from voluntary disappearance to felony kidnapping and endangerment. Hayes walked into the captain's office, the purple scarf heavy in an evidence bag on his palm. He laid the bag down. "Captain, I made a mistake. A serious mistake. The kid, Leo Vance, he gave us the window, the suspicious vehicle, and the contradiction to the runaway theory. We dismissed him. We lost 12 days. This is no longer a runaway. It's an abduction, and the girl is 15. The captain, a stern woman named Reynolds, stared at the scarf, then at Hayes. "Get Leo Vance back here now. This goes full priority, detective. You need to earn back those 12 days fast." Hayes drove his unmarked car to the Vance house himself. The blinds were drawn. The missing posters Leo had taped up 2 weeks ago were now peeling, their corners curling like dying leaves. When Leo opened the door, his face was etched with a profound, quiet anger that had replaced the initial panic. Leo didn't invite him in. He stood on the porch, arms crossed, staring at Hayes with zero tolerance. "Did you find her?" Hayes swallowed, the words tasting like metal and ash in his mouth. He was used to commanding respect, not begging for it. "Leo," Hayes began, keeping his voice low and devoid of the old cynicism. "I owe you an apology. A significant one. We were wrong. I was wrong. We found Clara's scarf near the neighbor's hedge, near where you saw the car. It had engine oil on it, suggesting a very brief struggle." Leo's composure broke, not in hysterics, but in a shaking of his entire body. "Wrong? You think that's enough? You laughed at me. You told me to check her friends. For 12 days, you treated me like a bored kid lying for attention. You treated Clara like a junkie skipping town. I was the one who found the receipt 30 miles away. I was the one who analyzed the cell data. If you had listened to me on day one, we would have had a 10-day head start. Now she's..." He couldn't finish the sentence. Hayes held up a hand, not in defense, but in surrender. "You're right. You are absolutely and completely right. I allowed my bias to blind me. I judged you based on the history of every other case I've worked, and that failure, that negligence is mine alone. I apologize, Leo. For me, the protocol started today. For you, the protocol started 12 days ago. And from this moment forward, I'm working on your timeline. I need you to forgive my mistake enough to help me. I need every piece of information you held back because you thought I wouldn't believe you." It was a clumsy, difficult apology, but its sincerity was undeniable. Leo looked at the veteran detective, seeing the shame and the desperation to fix the catastrophic error. He stepped back and let Hayes into the house. The investigation went into immediate overdrive. The precinct, ashamed of their initial negligence, mobilized. Forensic teams descended on the Vance house and the neighbor's property, using UV lights and ground-penetrating radar. Detective Santos put out an immediate bolo, be on the lookout, for an older, dark blue sedan with a partial plate 47Y, focusing the search on mechanic shops, junkyards, and long-term parking lots 30 miles north, the direction of the hardware store receipt. Hayes and Leo sat in the living room, surrounded by charts and maps. Leo, fueled by the adrenaline of validation, became an essential partner. He provided the missing pieces. She had a small, secret box, Leo explained, pointing to a diagram of her room. She built it herself. She bought those hinges, and that would glue a week before she disappeared. She kept it hidden in the back of her closet. It contained $1,000 in cash, savings from dog walking, and an ID card and bus ticket for an older woman she didn't know. The police were stunned. This was not the activity of a runaway, but of someone being primed to run, or perhaps someone being prepared for an elaborate lie. The money suggested coercion or payment. The ID and ticket suggested a handler or a contact. The search for the dark blue sedan proved fruitful. It was found abandoned in a long-term parking lot of an isolated regional bus terminal, 35 miles away. The car was dusted and quickly revealed two crucial facts. The driver's side steering wheel yielded clear, male fingerprints, and the trunk contained traces of the same low-grade engine oil found on Clara's scarf. The fingerprints led to a hit. Victor Sloan, a 52-year-old drifter who worked odd jobs as a handyman and was currently staying in a cheap motel near the bus terminal. Sloan had a history of minor theft and disturbing behavior, including previous stalking complaints that were never fully prosecuted. The final, devastating puzzle piece clicked into place when Santos ran the name on the ID card found in Clara's secret box. It belonged to Sloan's long-deceased mother. Sloan was preparing Clara to use his mother's identity to travel across state lines. The journal, the wood glue, the money. Clara wasn't running from her life. She was being meticulously packaged for a new one. Hayes realized the horrifying truth. Victor Sloan had been watching the Vance house, identifying the perfect time to strike. The moment the parents were gone and the brother was distracted. He wasn't a random predator. He was calculated, choosing a house with an empty, absentee core. He had seized Clara when she walked to the mailbox, a brief window of vulnerability. The chase was now focused on Victor Sloan. He was gone, but the bus terminal receipt showed he had purchased one ticket, destination unknown, and had left less than 3 hours before the police found the car. Hayes stood in the motel room Sloan had abandoned, looking at the detritus of a desperate, meticulous man. A half-eaten can of soup, maps marked with highway rest stops, and a small, hastily scribbled note pinned to the mattress. The note simply read, "She has the ticket. I have the destination. You're too late." The manhunt for Victor Sloan and the search for Clara Vance exploded into a multi-state operation. The initial negligence by the Silver Creek police, specifically Detective Hayes, was now headline news. The media had turned on the police with the same fervor they had once used to condemn Ethan Rowe. But for Hayes, the public shaming was irrelevant. All that mattered was finding Clara. He sat in the mobile command center, watching the video loop of Leo Vance on the news, pleading for any information. The same boy whose genuine terror he had once mocked. Hayes reached out to Leo, not through official channels, but through a burner phone, maintaining the confidential link they had forged. "Leo, we got the car. We have the suspect. We have the ticket and the ID. I need you to think, when you were going through her things, did you ever see her mention a specific place? A state? A city? Anywhere Sloan might want to start fresh?" Leo took a minute, the gravity of the question hanging in the silence. Then he said, his voice raw but focused, the journal. "It's the only thing she took. She wrote about a dream, building a cabin by a place where the water doesn't freeze in winter. The nearest place like that is the Oregon coast. That's a 40-hour bus ride." Hayes immediately cross-referenced the bus schedules. A single bus, heading west, had left Silver Creek less than 24 hours ago. The official search, spearheaded by a humbled and driven Hayes, now chased a single, faint lead. a 15-year-old girl and her predator, traveling across the country on a bus ticket bought with her own savings, heading toward a dream she had recorded in a stolen journal. Detective Hayes walked away from the command center, the weight of the investigation now personal. He had lost 12 days of a girl's life to his own jaded judgment. He knew the apology he owed Leo Vance, and the apology the Silver Creek police owed the community would never be complete until Clara was brought home. The race was on, a race that should have started 12 days earlier, and the only thing they had left was the hope that the persistence of a forgotten brother and the belated humility of a failed detective would be enough to catch the monster before he crossed the state line. This was Trace Crime Files. Subscribe for more stories where truth is stranger than fiction, and justice is never as simple as it seems.